Hello, everyone. Those of you here on I don't even know what day we are at anymore, but we appreciate you being here, 10 a.m. on a Sunday morning. This is a wonderful turnout for this very important session. We're delighted to have you here, and today we'll be discussing interregional exchanges between the SIDS regions, especially for youth. My name is James Elsmore. I am the CEO of Island Innovation, and I'm accompanied by my co-moderator, Stacey Alvarez, also from Island Innovation from Barbados. And we will be leading this 50-minute session today. So the goal of this session, as some of you know, Island Innovation has brought a delegation this year of 10 young people as part of the Climate Justice Leadership Academy from across the Caribbean. An amazing group of people, and you'll be hearing from some of them very shortly. And we wanted to give them the opportunity to share their stories and also stories from the Pacific, to bring these two regions, the Caribbean and the Pacific, together to exchange information about how youth can and are being involved in this climate, in these climate negotiations, and the importance of that. Now, to start, before we go into the main session, I'm delighted that we are joined by Matlet Mesfin, the Deputy Assistant Secretary from the Bureau of Oceans and International Environmental and Scientific Affairs. I hope I got that right, from the United States government. So I'll invite our keynote to come and take the floor. Thank you. Thank you very much for being here.
It is a very long name of our bureau. So thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. And thank you for inviting me to speak today. It really, truly is an honor. Actually, the first major UN meeting that I went to was the 2014 SIDS conference in Samoa. And the conversation about the impact of the climate crisis at that time had a big impact on me. And the issues that were discussed there and climate justice more broadly have really become more important over the years. And so I'm looking forward to this opportunity to be a part of the conversation today. Because my portfolio centers on ocean issues, I'm going to focus my remarks this morning more on the unique intersection between the ocean and climate, and how justice particularly impacts how we understand and build solutions to those challenges. We've heard a lot this week about how the climate crisis is also an ocean crisis. No one experiences this reality as acutely as island states, where the ocean is central to livelihoods, history, and culture. The most vulnerable among us suffer the most from the degradation of our ocean, whether that's from sea level rise or shifting fisheries, from ocean warming or ocean acidification. And you certainly don't need me to explain that to you. The reason I'm here is to learn from you about the realities and the challenges that you face, your families and your communities face too. It's important to acknowledge and spotlight the challenges, but this is also a moment to spotlight and celebrate the advocacy and the energy that you all are bringing to the solutions, and to raising your voices to global leaders to address the realities that you face. Young people bring much needed ingenuity, energy, and urgency to our efforts to address climate impacts in a just and equitable way. I know that this is the product of necessity as much as it is of passion. Your generation and the generations that follow you will bear the most of the consequences of climate crisis. And I commend the leadership that each of you has played and demonstrated in confronting these issues. Now more than ever, we need you and your voices. And I'm eager to hear about your work and perspectives on climate adaptation, mitigation, and resilience efforts in your regions. Before I turn it over to the group of people who will speak today, I just wanted to highlight one of the ways that the United States is working to incorporate issues of justice into our response to the ocean climate crisis. This past Friday, the Biden administration released the United States' first ever ocean justice strategy. This strategy identifies barriers and opportunities to fully integrate environmental justice principles into U.S. ocean activities at a national level. It was developed by a broad team across our government with input from communities in the United States that have borne the brunt of the inequitable ocean impacts, including tribal nations, U.S. territories, and Native Hawaiian organizations. Our vision for ocean justice that's outlined in the strategies has 5 pillars. The first is equitable access to the benefits of a healthy, resilient ocean. The second is meaningful engagement for all communities in our ocean activities. The third is valued engagement with tribes, indigenous people, and indigenous knowledge holders, particularly when it comes to decision-making and research. The fourth is expanded and improved ocean education that builds knowledge about the ocean for all Americans. And finally, applying ocean justice lenses to the ocean workforce, ocean research, and ways of knowledge. This is a national strategy for the United States, but ocean justice is certainly not only a domestic concern. Curious to know if any of these outline pillars of our strategy apply to your own communities, if you ever have a chance to review and give any feedback on the contents. At the State Department, we're really working hard to ensure that justice is a cornerstone of our global ocean policy. And we are committed to working with the global community to ensure that the needs and priorities of historically underrepresented and particularly vulnerable communities are heard and placed at the forefront of decision-making. We really must ensure that our solutions that we develop and implement are coordinated, just, and inclusive of our most vulnerable communities. The United States is committed to listening and learning and supporting your leadership on these issues. And so thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to the rest of the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Assistant Secretary, for joining us today and listening to the incredible panel that we have coming up. So with that, I would be delighted to ask our speakers to come to the front. So firstly, we have Kenley Kenneth, who is a Palau youth negotiator. We have Maya Semestra, who is a youth delegate from Antigua and Barbuda. Ryan Gervais, a youth delegate from Trinidad and Tobago. Luciano Durst, youth delegate from Suriname. And Dercia Sarmento Bello, youth climate activist and youth delegate from Timor-Leste. I just want to check, we don't have Sivendra here, I don't think. So we'll go ahead, and if our other speaker joins, then we'll find a way to include him. But luckily, we have just the right number of chairs, so that worked out well. And with that, I'll hand over to the fantastic Stacey Alvarez to lead the session.
Hi, everyone. So thanks so much for coming. And we really want to do everything we can to highlight these youth voices and highlight the experiences of young people from various regions and see ways that they can come together and gain strength from the sharing of each other's stories, but then also the creation of solutions that they can all help each other to formalize and make a reality. So I'd like to welcome again our panelists from different regions. It is so heartening to see the Caribbean region flanked by the Pacific regions, you know, symbolically and literally. I think it's wonderful that we can all come together and share our stories. So at this point, I'm going to hand it over to the panelists to just one by one tell us a little bit about your experiences on the front lines of the climate crisis, as it were, and some of the ways that you've been affected, but also ways you think you can gain strength from this. So I'll start from over here. You can just introduce yourself. Just give you some technical assistance with this mic. Let's get the green light on. Oh, there you go. Okay.
Hello, testing, 1, 2, 3. Can you all hear me? So hello, and as we say in the Republic of Palau, Ali, my name is Kenley Kenneth, and I am not a scientist or a chemist or an architect, but what I am is a storyteller, just like my ancestors were. And today I'm basically here to just talk stories with you all and kind of connect with these other amazing young panelists. So one of the reasons why we're here, like from the Pacific, is because you can literally see the impacts of climate change in our backyard. I can literally drive you down the street from my home, show you how the coastline has eroded over the years, and talk about how the fish stocks and fish population has rapidly moved from a young age to my adulthood because of impacts due to climate change. So I'm just really excited to kind of come here and kind of see what's going on in not only my region, but the other regions all over the globe, and kind of see how we as youth can bring solutions forward. One of the situations or questions I get asked a lot that I hate, I'll use the word hate, is what are the challenges you face as the youth? I can list you a 5-page document and cite my references and resources because we know what the challenges are, but let's talk solutions, because it gets a bit frustrating because they're like, what do the youth do? And my question would be, what can the youth not do in this space? Because I'm just so empowered, I'm so inspired, and I'm looking forward to hearing from everyone else here this morning. Thank you so much.
Thanks for that intervention, Kenneth. I think it's really important that you mentioned it should be solutions focused, and that's why we're all together. So I'll turn it over to Maya from Antigua and Barbuda. Go ahead, Maya.
That was fantastic, Kenley. You inspire all of us. Hi, everyone. My name is Maya. I'm from Antigua and Barbuda. I have many hats. I'm a mechanical engineering student. I'm a freelance artist. I'm a climate justice advocate and all-around lifelong learner. My experience with my environment is what motivates me to be a climate justice advocate. I live in the St. Lucian countryside. I also want to mention I was born in St. Lucia. And I've been blessed by the resources that surround me. So ample sunshine, wind, being 10 minutes away from the beach, having fruit trees, flowers around for aesthetic value. Like, it has been truly a pleasure to grow up at home. And I also am very aware that around my island, that nature has, supported our livelihoods. There are fishing villages, there are farms, etc., etc. So in short, I think it's inevitable that I am here. I have been given the opportunity to advocate for climate justice, and I'm very grateful for this opportunity. But essentially, I believe that eventually everyone would be a climate justice advocate in the Caribbean because it's so intertwined with our way of life. So I'm here to use this platform to promote, to advocate, to learn, to be inspired, and of course, to take solution-oriented action. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Maya. And I think it's great you mentioned that what you see happening in the environment is what motivates you. And as someone who is from the older generation, this is something that I know young people that you have to live with, because I did not see that change. I was lucky enough in a way to not see that. And we take it for granted when we're in this generation, the effect it has seeing the environment around you change. So I'll now like to turn over to Rianne of Trinidad and Tobago.
Hi, my name is Ryan, and I'm from Trinidad and Tobago, like Stacey said. I studied environmental science and sustainable technology at university, and I have a blog called A Plastic Free Life, and another blog called Lime with Ryan. And in Trinidad, I remember when I just started university in 2018, that there were devastating floods to the island, and the highway was cut off from the north to the south, and I wasn't able to go to school for a couple of days. So that's just like one way that climate change has affected me personally. It's affected my education, really. And it affected a lot of other Trinidadians. They can go about their day, their lives, and stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry about that. Well, I think what you're mentioning, the level of flooding, I think that's something that we can all relate to, unfortunately, and that I have seen change in terms of rainfall being much more irregular, but coming from a small island as well, it doesn't take that much rainfall anymore for there to be extreme amounts of flooding because of the issues with drought and the land. So these are these extremes that I'm very thankful for you that you've made known to us. Okay, so turning over to Luciano of Suriname. I'm just gonna switch mics. Okay, it works. Yes. Awesome.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Luciano Dus and I come from Suriname. I'll tell you a bit about myself. It all makes sense why I'm fighting for climate justice when I'm done. I come from Suriname, which is one of the most forested countries in the world. We have a 93% forest cover. So I grew up surrounded by biodiversity. I grew up surrounded by forest. From a very young age, I was very aware of how interconnected we are with our natural world, from like the coconut oil in my hair, from the food that I eat, I know it has natural origins, from the fibers that I wear. So I had a love for the forest. And in my studies, I studied environmental sciences. I also focused on forests back then. And afterwards, I went to work for the Red Cross for about 3 years, building resilience in some of the most vulnerable communities in Suriname. And I learned probably more than I ever did in the university from these communities and from nature itself. At a baseline, these communities have issues. They have a lack of access to a lot of things. They have lack of access to clean drinking water, a lack of access to healthcare, a lack of access to education. Illiteracy is pretty high. So that's before we talk about climate change making everything worse for these people. So that's why I always advocate for these people. These people also, I was working for them, but basically they took me in as their own. So I will always appreciate that. Right now I work in forestry. I do forestry research at the Center for Agricultural Research in Suriname. I help out with the greenhouse gas emissions, and I help out with non-timber forest products research. I mostly advocate for the people because I very much believe that if you save the people, you save the forest. I learned from them how interconnected they are, so we're all interconnected to our natural world, even though we're not always aware of it. It's crazy to think that technically the tribal and indigenous folk around the world make up about 5% of our world population, but they protect 80% of our biodiversity. They have a different view on what development is and living in the natural world. They've been doing this for centuries, and their way of living has only enriched the natural world, as opposed to what the Western world is doing. When they talk about development, it is about cutting down trees, it's looking for minerals, sometimes it's trampling human rights. So that is kind of my background. And this is my first COP. I'd like to thank Island Innovation for giving me the opportunity. The Caribbean Climate Justice Leaders Academy was actually really the first time I feel like I was connected to the Caribbean, the whole Caribbean, because the Caribbean also has territories and other islands that are not well represented in policy and other areas higher up in government and in UN. So I'll leave it at that for now, and would like to give it over to the next speaker.
Thanks so much. Thank you so much, Luciano, for mentioning the importance of connection, which is also happening right here and now on the stage. So this is great to witness. So over to Dircia, our next speaker from Timor-Leste.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dircia, and I'm from Timor-Leste. First of all, I would like to thank the Island Innovation for giving me the opportunity to sit among young people from the same region. It's my first time here at COP as well. So I know that most of you are wondering, Timor-Leste, is it part of the Pacific or Asia? Don't worry, me too. I'm also confused. So geographically, we are in Southeast Asia. We're part of the Asia, but our culture, our lifestyle, we share pretty similar with our brothers and sisters from Pacific Islands. So we're kind of like both. So in my case, it's quite different. I grew up in a rural area most of the time. In that era, we spent a lot of time with the nature. As a kid, I loved to going out, swimming, running in the forest, and catch the fish. And that's the thing that I used to do when I was growing up. But then I see the changes happening. And at that time, I didn't see this as an issue because I wasn't well informed about the climate change, about the environmental destruction that caused by humans. So because my love for the nature, I decided to study environmental management. Too bad that there is no course in my country that teach environmental management or anything related to environmental really. So I decided to apply for the scholarship, and thank God I found the scholarship to continue my undergrad abroad. So from there, I started to learn about the environment and the climate change too, but not really. And then I started to join so many movements because this is something that I love doing. I love spending time with young people to do something I love, something I'm most passionate about. So from there, I started to connect the dot, the things that I learned from the school, from experiences, to the reality that I encountered, the changes that I see in my country. So from there, I started to establish a movement called Laudato Si movement. If you guys familiar with the letter from the Pope Francis, the Laudato Si, I founded the movement back home in 2020, and from there the movement is growing so fast. Now it has started with me, and now we have more than 400 animators who graduated from that course, and we have almost 100 official members for that movement. I think I'm gonna stop here. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for that incredible, I think how you've summed up what you've done and how you're also showing us the importance of education and how we can make a change in that regard. So that was wonderful to hear. Thank you for that those inspiring words. So we will go on to Dr. Sivendra Michael, who is the Fijian Permanent Secretary for Environment and Climate. Very accomplished, also youth delegate yourself. We would love to hear from you, Dr. Sivendra.
Thank you, moderator. First of all, my sincerest apologies. I was in a bilateral meeting. Very delighted to be here, part of this panel, to speak about the work that young people are doing. And also as a youth adjacent now, very proud to be in the space working with young people to mobilize, climate action. Actually, I don't want to say how I came into this space, because all of us have our own stories and our own journeys into coming into this space. But one thing that grounds all of us is the personal experiences, the personal stories of how we are growing up in large ocean states, or how we are connected to Mother Nature, how our ancestors have actually grounded us in this space and going forward. As a development practitioner and one that works in a lot of disaster settings across the globe, I first came to realize about work around climate change through my interactions in the community, which was through research. And I think for me personally, this was a fundamental entry point, because one, it is something that is continuously undermined. And as you can see, that even here at COP, the IPCC, which are the experts in producing scientific findings to guide our discussions in the negotiation room, they're not quite taken seriously, and we have to continuously negotiate why 1.5. And I think research plays such an important role, and growing out from research into working in different organizations with PIVs, with UN. I'm still with the UNDP. I'm not yet permanent secretary. I'm incoming permanent secretary, so I start next year. But what I would like to say is that with hearing everyone's stories, there is a necessity that this intergenerational dialogue continues, and that young people are not used in a tokenistic manner in terms of policy formulation, policy implementation. They are the future of tomorrow. They are also the generation in which climate crisis conversations have started with, and they are the generation that is trying to stop it. So we must create enabling environment for them. So thank you for that.
Thank you so very much. Those words really are timely, because we can definitely appreciate the importance of it not just being interregional, but also intergenerational, and to avoid at all costs that tokenism, which can be, it is something that's very demeaning. It's something that I know can have its negative effects, and we want to make sure that what we do here today does not smack of that at all. So at this point, I do notice that it's your personal experiences that are that personal, but still bind you together. So I would love to hear a little bit about what you see as some of the solutions that you think can be implemented, because we're moving away from the challenges. As our esteemed panelist has mentioned, we're not going to go down that road. I'd love to hear from each of you. What do you think is the key solution, or the key to encompassing a solution into moving forward from this, the climate issue that we're facing?
I would have appreciated a bit more time to really put together a good answer, but I can do my best right now. So based on sort of what I'm thinking at the moment, yesterday we had a conversation about climate finance for local communities. And there are only 3 Pacific Islanders in the room. And we were talking about all of these amazing resources available, all of these amazing things you could access in order to help our local communities address climate action. And yet the people who needed it the most were not there. So how do we address that? How do we not just send out an email and expect for people to come and actually learn about the resources that are being provided by governments, organizations who are eager to help, and yet the people who kind of need the, I wouldn't say hand-holding, but I would say they would need the appropriate attention, the appropriate assistance. How do we tailor that to assist those communities specifically? So I would say that making sure that engaging in the work with the people who need it the most, and not just saying, here are the resources at the table, and just saying, okay, now you're going to figure out where the table is, you're going to figure out where the resources are, and on your own, you're going to figure out how you can access those resources. So basically, I would say that it's very important to offer meaningful assistance. And secondly, involve the youth, involve Indigenous communities, involve all of these communities that otherwise wouldn't have had the opportunities to access these resources.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that. That's an excellent point. It's not just about resources and providing them, but it's curated opportunities to access the resources and a form of mentorship, as you say, not necessarily hand-holding, but we can all collectively come together and see how best to utilize those. Thank you for that, Kenneth. Maya, would love to hear your thoughts on solutions for the future that you'd like to see implemented.
Definitely. Education is very pivotal. I'm an example of that. Was it 2-3 months ago? I had a very limited awareness of what climate justice was. I mean, I was aware of the effects of climate change because it was my lived experience, but I didn't know how to understand or contextualize it, or even see where I stand and understand what I can do. So joining the Caribbean Climate Justice Leadership Academy was extremely pivotal. They gave us, we participated in lectures from professionals. We got to interact with each other and learn. And then also this opportunity to come to COP where even further learning and inspiration has taken place. So in that regard, I believe that education is extremely important, but also targeting the youth and then understanding which types of youth we're dealing with. And by types, I mean by age. You know, if we're introducing climate education in school, we need to ensure that we use, you know, language that the young ones can understand. And then if it's at the secondary education, you know, it becomes more advanced. Also, what are the youth's interests? So we have the formal education system, or the very like academically rigorous system, but there's also technical and vocational education. How can we integrate these principles for a just, you know, climate safe future into that? So being very aware of how we're using education to engage youth, and of course, tailoring it to their needs. Also, I think that unity is a very big part of it. I'm very inspired by the Pacific Islander movements, and I believe we as a Caribbean can do so much more. But I'm sure that, you know, my fellow panelists may expand on that point even more. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Maya. That's awesome. I love the idea. It's not just education, but it's a nuanced approach to education and making sure that you are imparting a message in a way that everyone in the youth, whether they're marginalized of various age groups, can understand, and the pivotal role of certain educational experiences. So thank you for that, Maya. Thank you. Rianne, we'd love to hear from you about solutions. The floor is yours.
I think firstly, I think as individuals, we have a responsibility. So I believe that my carbon footprint contributes to climate change, and by adopting a sustainable lifestyle, I can minimize my impact. This includes conserving energy, reducing waste, and embracing renewable energy sources. Additionally, I pledge to make an informed consumer choice to prioritize sustainability and support businesses with environmentally friendly practices like sustainable fashion. Secondly, I think community engagement is really important. So I believe empowering my local communities is essential for climate change resilience. I will actively engage in environmental awareness incentives, conducting workshops and organizing community-driven sustainable development programs. By spreading knowledge and creating a dialogue, we can mobilize collective action and increase the resilience of vulnerable communities. And lastly, I think supporting vulnerable communities. To combat climate injustice, I commit to supporting and uplifting marginalized communities by volunteering my time and resources. I aim to help vulnerable communities adapt to climate change through the implementation of sustainable practices, improvement of infrastructure, and advocating for their voices to be heard.
Thanks very much for that, Ryan. And just to bring some things together, what you mentioned, I love your focus on you feeling responsible. And even as one person, we often think that just one person can't make a difference. That's the exact opposite. If each of us as one person decided to make a difference collectively, that would have a huge impact. So you must never think that your efforts are wasted or that you can't possibly make a difference. It's absolutely the opposite, as Ryan has pointed out. And then I think, as you mentioned, actively seeking opportunities to educate yourself about climate change and what you can do as one person. So thank you for that. So moving on to Luciano, your ideas of solutions.
Yes, my ideas for solutions, as I said, I advocate for the people mostly. It's two things mostly. It's decolonization and a human rights-based approach. These people, tribal and indigenous folk, have been historically and systematically kept out of the equation, kept out of the discussions, and have been underrepresented. This goes back to our colonized past. The colonizers split us up so we'd never unite and rise up against them. And they created a system to keep that in place. We still have that system in place. It still echoes that same division of keeping marginalized groups out. I keep calling it a system because the people in power, the people working in the system right now, don't necessarily have the intention of ill will, of excluding people, but the system does. So we need intention from the people to change that. And that's why we need a human rights-based approach. You need to start from human rights. You need to start from every person has a right to clean drinking water. Every person has a right to be themselves. And every person has a right to thrive. So that's my solution. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Luciano. We love that. The idea that everything is about human rights at the end of the day, and we have to recognize the many forms of colonization that we're still dealing with that might be very subtle, but they are still there. They're a legacy of what many of us living in islands have experienced. And the more awareness we can bring to that, I think the better equipped we will be to move forward and implement solutions. So turning over now to Jessia from Timor-Leste. We'd love to hear from you.
Thank you for the question. So in my case, I would say I agree with my fellow panelists here have said about education. As I mentioned about my experience before, I think education is the key. Either is informal or formal education, because I know that we don't want to talk about the problems, but I think it's really important to look at the root of the problem, especially in my country, because most people there, especially the young people, they don't see climate change as an issue. In 2021, we experienced the tropical cyclone, and it hit the country very bad. It caused the flooding, the landslide, and it destroyed more than 30,000 households and infrastructure. Well, when I go to the university, to the village, explaining about the climate change and asking about that, most of the common answer is God's punishment. That's the common answer I've heard from them. So that means that like we know exactly why they answered that. So in my case, it's really important to connect their reality into in their belief and back up with the science. It's hard to take the science and put it into them and explaining the climate change and how it impacts them, but we have to tailor it. We have to take that issue into their belief. That's why for me it's really important that I'm focusing on the faith, because I want them to believe that like this world that we're living, this is part of the God's creation. How come you say you love God and yet you destroy his creatures? So that's the message that I always put out there, and I think that it's really important to emphasize that as well. And also the last thing I want to highlight is we all know that learning happens through actions, right? So it's really important to give the opportunity to young people for them to start to guide them to start doing their initiatives, because I know that most young people out there, they have the solution, they have the energy, they have the motivation, but their lack of support in terms of the mentoring, in terms of the resources and funding. And it's really important to guide them and give the opportunity to implement anything that relates to climate. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for letting us see that awareness of what we're facing in terms of what people believe and how we have to help them to integrate beliefs about science with beliefs that they have inherited or what they see happening around them. So thank you for that. Okay, Dr. Michael, over to you.
Thank you. I think there's a lot that has been already expressed, so I'm just going to build on to viewpoints that's commonly discussed in these kind of spaces, but one that is not widely appreciated. First point is, like my sister from Timor-Leste has said, changing worldviews, but also at the same time understanding where your best investment of time is. We will always have climate deniers. We will always have people that are going to be pushing back. So you really need to ask the question of whether it is worthwhile for us to continue engaging time and effort in to preach to the unconverted. Like, how much more we can do with the same time and effort by working with those that are already, doing good in this space and wanting to do better for our planet. So we really need to ask this question. And the second and very important point is leveraging partnerships. We in the Pacific are very good at mobilizing people and resources, and so in the South Americas and other regions. So let's continue leveraging not only existing partnership, but new partnerships to grow and amplify the work that we are doing, whether it's about decolonization, whether it's about, movement in the communities. It is about mobilizing through your existing networks and building on. And a good example that I can give is, for example, the Pacific Climate Warriors. It's all over the world, and they rely on their diaspora community to try and mobilize efforts instead of just relying on the country representatives in each of the Pacific Islands. When Hunga Tonga Hunga Hapai happened in Tonga, the diaspora was able to mobilize more remittance to support the existing families that were affected than the own civil society itself. So we really need to leverage on this existing partnership. Third and very most important point is we are living in a complex risk environment. We need to continuously, as young people and as people from, that are experienced and growing in this space, all of us, this doesn't only apply to young person. We need to unlearn and relearn new ways of working together. This is very important, especially when we know that the risk environments that we are working with, and when we talk about risk informing development in our communities, in our grassroots, it's not only about talking, it's about doing the work. So we really need to unlearn a lot of these practices and relearn new approaches. And last, the grounding point that I have is, as I mentioned before, create enabling spaces. So if you are taking young people into COP and you want them to engage meaningfully, provide them access to the rooms so they understand what's happening in the negotiation. So they're not talking off their cuff, oh, this is what we want, this is what we come here to preach. they have to understand the process, and the only way they can understand the process if they're involved in the process. So create that environment for them. And this is something that I look forward to doing when I come into my new role, is to create spaces for young people so that even if they come and shadow a negotiator, they are learning. They're continuously in those spaces. They can talk to the process. They do not have to hear say from the corridors. And that's all I have to say for now.
Thank you very much for that. And I will at this point give a shameless plug for the Caribbean Climate Justice Leaders Academy. That's exactly what we did with some of our delegates as best we could. We ensured that there were parts of national delegations that could be inside of the rooms during negotiations. And it was enlightening for some of them, it was enlightening for everyone. And it also gave insight into what exactly is happening so that you can better build tools to combat that or work with that. So at this point, we have about 9 minutes left. I would love to open the floor to questions from anyone in the audience. As those of you who may have come late, we're just here discussing ways to look at inclusivity for young people in interregional dialogues as well as intergenerational dialogues. So please, the floor is open for questions. Anyone who'd like to ask, we have mics you can get.
Hi, my name is Patricia Willock. I'm representing Stop Ecocide International. I don't have a specific questions, but I want to tell you, I mean, of course, you know it, that the reason we are in this situation at the moment is because the law is too anthropocentric. And we need to add an element, ecocentric element into the law. Because if we continue like this, we will, if the destruction of nature is allowed, we will continue and will not be able to solve our issues. So it is very important to stop the mass destruction of nature. So we are, I guess, here because we want to invite young people from the Pacific Islands to join our movement as well, because we believe that there is also a solution in stopping the mass destruction of nature, like ecocide. And we would love to invite you into this movement. And we thank you for all your intervention today. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Thanks for that comment about the role of nature and the importance of moving the dialogue away from the anthropogenic or looking at man instead of looking at nature. I know that Luciano had actually touched on this when you mentioned that Indigenous people are often the stewards of natures around the world. Would anyone like to comment on that intervention?
So I did want to have a closing remark. I wanted to give the other speakers time, but one thing I always talk about is the amazing work, the amazing knowledge that traditional people have. Thinking back to even like the Amazon, way back, not being the Amazon at all, but thanks to the efforts of indigenous and tribal folk trekking to the lands and enriching the lands, making the lungs of the world, basically. Like, that's what they did for us, and they're still excluded, so much injustice for them. I always talk about hope. We need to have hope. The Secretary General spoke of the gates of hell being opened when it comes to climate change. We are facing overwhelmingly bad odds. There's a lot of bad news. But we need to have hope. Without hope, you will never envision the solutions. You will never see that better life for yourself. You will never see that brighter future. And even from where I come from, I'm working on transforming the narrative. The seeds around my neck are the toys I grew up with. It has a link to the slavery past of Suriname. We play a little game where we rub this on the asphalt and we burn each other. And it has a little song that translates to Firestone, Firestone, don't burn me so. If I tell Master James, he will kill the children. So that is like an echo of our past in slavery, the fear of being slaves, of being killed by the colonizers. But there's more to tell about these beads. These beads are, in the scientific term, a mucus seed, and they drop all over my country, and they survive the sea, they survive the storms, and they end up all over the Caribbean, and it unites us. all of us know where these seeds come from and we play with them. That's transforming the narrative. We're no longer those slaves. We're united now. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Luciano. Very touching and moving. And it was very touching because, yes, I've seen those seeds as well. Wash Up on Shore in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, where I'm from, sometimes in Barbados. And the image of that uniting us, I think, is important because we're so used to the narrative of oppression and of even the word resilience, which connotes that there's something wrong that we have to battle against. And I think we should always talk about our potential and our options of magnificence as Caribbean people and of Pacific people and of island people. So are there any more questions from the audience at this point?
Thank you all. I know we only have a few minutes left, so I'll be brief. I wanted to ask how, and if any of you have the experience, how do we try and connect what's happening here when you go home back to your home countries, and how do we continue that conversation? I know it's very hard sometimes to articulate what is happening here to the community at home and how that is relevant. So I'm just curious if anyone has any thoughts or insights there in 30 seconds or so.
Thank you, sir, for that question. I think 2 points. One is around those of us that are actually in these settings. It doesn't have to wait till we get home. One is the conversations that we have on the side events needs to be somewhat the grounding point for us in the negotiation rooms when we are taking the floor, so that we are reflecting on the the comments that are coming out from our fellow PCIDS or within the IOC's positions. Two is when we go home, the work continues, particularly as they prepare for the subsidiary bodies, which happens in June, and also the workshops that are in between for every related thematic track. So it's about how do we integrate that same voices and concerns that have been raised in these forums through those avenues. And three, and very most importantly, I started with research. I'm going to end with research, is to continue, contributing to the body of knowledge that exists. And I would like to acknowledge here distinguished Professor Steve Ratuva, who is actually leading a project called the Pacific Oceans Climate Crisis Assessment, which is basically the Pacific version of the IPCC. And this is to capture the case studies of what's happening in the region across thematic areas. So it is research like this that actually amplifies stories from the communities, the realities from the ground, that can give us an opportunity to then make the global or the broader community, broader research community, be aware. And a landing point on this is, for example, I'm part of the Loss and Damage chapter, and I'm honored to be part of that chapter in this project. There is very rare cases across all of us panelists on documenting residual loss. What does residual loss mean? How many Pacific Island countries or Asia Pacific countries or Caribbean have actually documented loss and residual loss in our own settings? Very minimal. It's not in the IPCC report. It's not widely researched. It's new knowledge. So it becomes our responsibility to take these conversations that we are talking about. You've heard of residual loss in so many settings. How do we then translate it into documented evidence so that the global North is also aware of what's happening in our region? Thank you.
Thanks so much. On those incredibly wise words, we'd like to wrap up our panel today. Thanks so much for you all for coming. It was great to see a room full. And I hope that you all take our words to heart and really just keep them in mind as we are kind of moving through the end of COP, and have a sense of hope as we've established here. Thank you so much to our audience. Thank you.